What's up, guys? Our Wrestling Podcast back at you with another episode. This is Dave Vicious along with Jess the Total Package, Craig the British Bulldog, and Cuz is off this week. I heard there was a celebration.
Oh, so good.
And he is not bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. Can someone feed me today's topic?
Dave, we are going to do another installation because our first one was a fucking failure. The What Happened To. It's the What Happened To series. And the first one we did Ahmed Johnson, and I hated it because of the person that's not on this podcast. And then now we're going to do, it was just don't watch it. Don't ever go back and watch it on our archives. Ever. Now I'm going to try it again. It's What Happened To Marc Mero.
What?
When Jess put this out today, I got really excited because I think Marc Mero is such a gem, and he did come and go, and there's some controversy behind it, and I think it's a really good topic for us. So I'm kind of excited. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcast, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. On social media, give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at O.W.P 2019 or at Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast.
I'm being dead serious right now.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying I'm the smartest wrestling fan. We all have been watching for a long time. I've been watching for a long time, since 1987/88. And I would like to think that I know a good wrestler, good performer, whatever you want to say. And there's a lot of people, especially on the big podcasts, like the Bruce Pritchards of the world and all that stuff, where they continuously make jokes at Marc Mero about his in-ring performance and stuff. And I'm like, what? Marc Mero was one of the most improved wrestlers from when you saw him from the beginning. And then, when he left, he was very injury prone towards the end or whatever. And then he got kind of overshadowed by Sable. But Marc Mero was actually a good wrestler. He wasn't bad. He kind of combined a hybrid style. He was kind of a high flyer for a decent sized guy. I don't know off the top of my head how tall he was, but he had to be 6 foot, 6'1", 2, maybe something like that. And 200 and probably 25, 30 pounds legit. Real weight. I'm talking about inflated wrestling weight. And so he would do flips over the top rope. He would do flips over the top rope from the apron into the ring at leg drop. And he would do stuff off the top rope and shooting star presses off the top rope and everything. Man,
it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Dude,
he was a trusted curtain jerker guy. He would always be trusted with one of the first 2-3 matches in an
As a matter of fact, I believe Mero was one of my guilty pleasures that we did on a past episode, because I just was I don't understand how people don't like him, don't at least think that he's a decent hand in there. I don't, in some of the big, the Jim Rosses and stuff, I'm pretty sure on Jim Ross and Bruce Pritchard podcast, they make little jabs like that he wasn't that good. And I'm like, what? You guys are crazy. You're silly.
Well, we can, I don't know if we're going to get into it with the reading.
Look at me fighting people that are in the industry.
Jim
Ross?
You don't know anything.
Well, I think people take jabs at people when they take jabs at the industry. And Marc Mero has certainly done his fair share of that. Trying to talk about unionization and other items and insurance for wrestlers. He's been out there. He's been very vocal about that for some years, and you can tell that people that are still in the industry don't like that. So I think that's part of the jab. But I agree with you. You can't knock the talent and not just his in-ring ability, but when he went to work on the mic, he really went to work, and he was pretty good. We never put him as a prelim, right? He was never like Craig said. He's opened up several pay-per-views.
He was a solid mid-carder.
Yeah. Light heavyweight champion. Johnny, why don't you say a little something to him about that pretty belt you're going to put around your waist?
Oh, Hershey, let me tell you one thing about Flying Brian. After November 19th at the Clash, they're going to call him Crying Brian because he's going to be dying after I hit him with my Tutti Frutti. That belt is going to look so pretty around my waist because I am the bad.
Marc Mero was born in Buffalo, New York. His parents divorced when he was 8 years old, with his mother supporting him and his 2 siblings by working 2 jobs. At the age of 12, Mero began playing hockey, eventually becoming his league's most valuable player. In 1973, Mero's family relocated to Liverpool, New York, where Mero played for the Mid-State Youth Hockey League. At age 15, Mero began playing for the Syracuse Stars junior hockey team. It's kind of a weird start when you think about it. But then he started playing football in his senior year at Liverpool High, with his team winning the New York State Public High School Athletic Association title. That is a mouthful.
That's the longest title ever.
Right. Mero began training as a boxer under Golden Gloves coach Ray Rinaldi. Mero went on to win 4 New York State titles, including the New York Golden Gloves tournament. Mero intended to become a professional boxer, but his career was sidelined after his nose was broken in an accident. He briefly pursued a bodybuilding career, placing third in the Mr. New York State bodybuilding contest. That is a lot of moving around to find your calling. But
Yeah.
I think we all do it, right? At the end of the day, it's just a little bit different.
I'm a bodybuilder right now.
That's what I heard.
Yeah. To go from boxer to bodybuilder to wrestler, and then of course, to like everybody else, he worked at a gym where he met Tampa's Jay Parker, or like one of those old guys that got him into the business.
It always happens
how the
that
story
way.
goes. Yeah.
Yeah, to your point, I'm sure they met him at a gym, but in 1990, Mero decided to become a wrestler, traveling to Tampa, Florida to train under the Malinkos. He debuted in 1991 in the Florida Suncoast Professional Wrestling promotion. Several months later, Mero would be used during WCW tapings as enhancement talent. He got into an altercation with Butch Reed, who accused him of no-selling his finisher during a taping where Mero and a partner would lose to Doom. There's got to be a good story behind that one.
There is. Very good.
Yeah. In actuality, Mero thought he had to roll out of the ring quickly once taking the finisher, so the hard camera would only focus on the talent that won. Thanks to Sid Vicious, that dispute was cleared up.
So
he was just trying to get out of there.
Yeah, he was a enhancement talent, and he was brought into the WCW tapings in 1990, and him and a partner faced Doom. So he took Doom's finisher, and he thought in his mind, and he actually told the story on Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast, I think recently actually.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I'll put a clip here. Where he explained it. He was like, something to the effect of, maybe I'll put the clip after I botch the explanation. So that's probably the better place to put the clip. So yeah, he just basically said, like, I just rolled out of the ring because I thought, like, it's a TV taping. So they're like mass editing like this stuff. It's like for syndicated television. So I took the finisher and I rolled outside the ring because I wanted to get out of the way of the hard camera so they can do their pose and they can point to the camera and they're focusing on Doom. Wrong thing to do. Butch Reed took it as like, sold my finisher. Like, you took our finisher, you got pinned, you rolled right out of the ring. So I guess he went back to the back or whatever, and there was a separate locker room. There was an enhancement talent locker room and then the stars. And he said it was typical for the big stars to be all in the enhancement talent locker room to thank them. Like, hey, thanks. And that was kind of cool for me to hear because you never really heard of the big talent going into prelims or enhancement talent locker room going, hey, thanks for putting me over. Like, you wouldn't think that, but like, yeah, I guess that was customary, because they would hire these guys from local, Florida Championship Wrestling, or not Florida Championship Wrestling, but like the Florida promotion, the Suncoast promotion training. So those guys would get, hey, I'm going to go and get beat up, but I'm going to get ring time. So the pros would go in there and say, hey, man, thanks for basically being my crash dummy, like my crash test dummy.
Sure.
So Butch Reed and Ron Simmons came in there and he thought, oh, they're going to, say thanks or whatever. And he was going to thank them because he knew who they were and he was big fans. And Butch Reed got pissed. You're trying to make me look like shit. You're trying to make me look bad in there or whatever. And then you realize, oh my God, like, so he said Sid heard it. Sid was thanking his prelim for thinking, thanks for letting me powerbomb you on your head.
I knew it was coming.
Doing all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So like, and he heard it and I guess he went over and he kind of knew of Mero and he just told Butch like, dude, hey, this guy's cool. He wasn't trying to do that to you. So then he looked at Mero and he was like, next tapings, you're facing me. And so like, he was like, oh, like, he took that in a good way. Like, that's cool because Sid's going to show me like what I should do and, talk to him. And Sid just said, yeah, he's insulted because, you rolled out. He took that as an offense. Like, you didn't want to sell his finisher. And Mero's like, no, I thought I was doing him a favor by rolling out of the hard camera so they could do whatever. So it was a whole misunderstanding. So I guess a little bit later, Dave, you're going to read on, but he got called and someone told him like, hey, Dusty wants to see you. And Dusty was head booker in WCW at this time. So he goes in there and he's like, oh, I'm going to get fired and shit or whatever.
Wow.
And he went in, he said right away, he told Dusty, like, I just want to tell you, I'm really sorry for what happened at the tapings. I did not mean to disrespect Mr. Reed. Like, I just thought I wanted to roll out of the way. He's like, huh? I don't know anything about that. And he told him like, you look just like Little Richard. Has anyone told you that? And he was like, not a soul has ever told me I look like Little Richard. He was like, you look just like him. Or I think at first he said something to the effect of like, no one's ever told me that. Little Richard, I've never heard of an athlete or something called Little Richard. He's like, no, the thing of the performer, Little Richard. And he was like, no one's ever told me that. And he's like, you look just like him. So like that's when he just goes, I got a gimmick for you. It's going to be Johnny Be Bad. It's going to be like Johnny Be Good, but Johnny Be Bad. And you're going to be like kind of Little Richard. You're going to be flamboyant. You're going to be super flamboyant, wear boas, makeup, whole thing. You're going to be heel. And we're going to put Teddy Long with you and the whole thing. So you can read on.
I can't read it any better than what you just wrote it. So he was initially a villain and managed by Teddy Long. He debuted at Super Bowl I in May of 1991.
And then a funny story too that Mero told about his dad. His dad was a huge supporter of him, and he called his dad. He's all, back then, you don't call. He's like, his dad was like lived in Brooklyn, so he's just like, you don't call like a Brooklyn father and like say collect. He's all, because back then you call collect and you have a voice going, hey, so and so, you have a phone call from Marc Mero. Do you want to accept it? So he's like, my first thing was like, you're supposed to record your name, but instead it was like, Dad, don't hang up, like because he knew his dad would hang up because it's like, oh, collect call, it's going to cost you money. So he called him and he's like, hey, I just wanted to call and tell you I got hired by WCW, because Dusty Rhodes basically gave him a contract in that conversation I just talked about. Sure. And he gave him this contract and he's like, hey, go take it to your lawyer and just come back to me later or whatever. And he said Dusty Rhodes was in a phone call. So Dusty Rhodes gave him the contract and continued his phone call. And he leaned in. He's like, Mr. Rhodes, I don't even have a lawyer or like any kind of like representation or anything like that. Can I just sign it here? Because he saw on there it was going to be like 75 grand for the first year, 150 grand for the second year. And he was like, I'm a millionaire. Like, that's what he thought. He's like, I made it, man. I fucking made it. Can I just sign it here? So he called his dad, Collect, to tell him that or whatever. And his dad's like, what are you calling me for? And he's like, oh, I made it. I just got hired by WCW. And he's like, for X amount of dollars. And he's like, oh, I knew you'd make it. I knew you'd make it. What are you going to be doing? And he's like, well, I'll be like this flamboyant Johnny B. Bad character. So he said the first pay-per-view that he was on, which was Super Bowl I, his dad invited a bunch of his cop buddies over.
Oh,
and they're all macho men or whatever.
Hilarious.
So, Johnny B. Bad was a Golden Glove boxer, right? So he's like, my son, the boxer, the real athlete or whatever. He gets out there and he's so pretty. And he's got the bow on or whatever. And he's like, ow. And he said the first thing that he said, he's like, I'm so pretty, I should have been born a little girl. That was the first line that he said. And he had to look back at his cop buddies or whatever. And he was just like, he gets paid a lot of money.
Introducing first, the godfather of World Championship Wrestling, Theodore R. Long, proudly presents from Macon, Georgia, weighing 252 pounds, Johnny B. Bad.
A lot of money. Like, pretty much. So
that's how
I think I
told
butchered
it.
those stories up, but like, yeah, I just thought it
Wow.
was super fucking funny. Like, and that's how he started. Like, Dusty Rhodes saw something in him. He's like, you look like Little Richard. And he just gave him the gimmick of Johnny B. Bad.
You gotta take what you get, bro, is what I would say. And
You do. You really do.
we've talked about this quite a bit before we started recording, and what I will say is that not only is Marc Mero super talented in the ring, but he took this one opportunity and he sold it. People love Johnny B. Bad. You can see people cheering for Johnny B. Bad every time he comes out. Craig talked about it earlier. He opened so many cards with the Johnny B. Bad gimmick. People loved it. I don't know who it was. We talk about it maybe a little bit later, but I think it was Joe or somebody you talked about. Just hated the fact that he'd come out first because
I wrote that here with his Bad Blaster gun.
the Bad Blaster gun. So we'll get into it in a second. So, but yeah, after that short heel run, Bad was turned face. He was pushed heavily as a mid-carder and would often open house shows and pay-per-views to get the crowd motivated. This allowed him to really learn his skill and become a better performer. He would bring his Bad Blaster to the ring, a gun that shot confetti, and use it to get the crowd into the match by shooting said confetti at them. But this is what I'm talking about. Somebody would be so mad all the time because the next...
We would all be mad because
we all would, yeah.
like the next matches, there'd always be wrestlers with confetti all over them for like
the rest of the night.
Yeah, all night. We're like, fucking Johnny Bad. God, come on.
Yeah.
If any wrestler got thrown outside the ring, they would get up and they had confetti all over their back.
Like to your point, like...
Yeah, even 4 matches later, we would just look at each other and be like, fucking Johnny
Well, what
Bad.
the fuck? Clean up. Can't you clean that shit up?
That's what I was going to say. Is there no one out there with a push broom that can't get that out of there? I'm just...
Yeah.
What the hell is happening? Yeah. So, that good old Bad Blaster. In 1994, he would win the WCW television title and continue to be featured in the mid-card there.
Guy had a lot of charisma. He took the time to really get himself in incredible shape. Guy was ripped. He was tanned. His gear was incredible. He spent a lot of money on his costuming. I mean, he did everything that you should do properly to present yourself as a package that anyone would want working for their company. And and the guy worked hard, and he was learning the business. He hadn't been in that long. Back in the day, you would always say it took you about 4 years to get the business, and that's working 300 days a year, to get the business down to where you could go out and have a match with anybody, overcome any adversity, or, the old cliche was have a match with a broomstick.
Right.
The guy was good.
There in '95, Mero would be put into a storyline where he was accompanied to the ring by Kimberly Page, DDP's real wife, while feuding with DDP. WCW then wanted to have a love triangle with the three of them, but Mero did not like the angle and opted to leave the company. Was this because of his? I'm trying to remember. Was he with Sable at this time?
Yeah, he was married to Sable here in WCW. Yeah. I think he didn't like it for that.
He didn't like that.
Yeah,
and
he just didn't like it. But he really matured as a wrestler. Like even in the early days of Nitro, watch anything that Johnny B. Bad was doing. Like he was doing really well. And then he had this amazing match with Brian Pillman at Fall Brawl, 1995. And it was like a 20-minute match. It was so good. And it just showed me how good he was. Like, but you think about it, all of '94, he got to open pay-per-views with people like Steven Regal, Steve Austin. And there was there was a couple other people too where I'm like, dude, he was just getting Craig and I always joke, like every pay-per-view in like 93, 94 was like opening match, the opening contest, coming down the aisle, Johnny B. Bad. Here comes Johnny B. Bad. Yeah, he would just, here comes Johnny B. Bad. He got a down, left hook. But he owned that gimmick and he would start doing really innovative moves. He did a lot of cool like flip moves over the top rope. He did like just so many cool things. And everybody slept on him for some reason. So he left here and it was like, oh man, like Johnny B. Bad was actually starting to wear on me after a while.
Yeah. Now he grows on you, right? Yeah, he grows on you.
He's as pretty as a picture. He looks just like Little Richard.
We're getting into the WWF stage. Mero actually signed with the WWF in early 1996 with his real-life wife, Rena Mero, better known as Sable. He would be called the Wild Man, Marc Mero. He debuted in the WWF as a fan favorite at WrestleMania 12, on March 31st, 1996, where he rescued his wife, Rena Sable Mero, from Hunter's Helmsley. Nobody knows who that guy is. Mero made his in-ring debut the following night on Monday Night Raw, where he defeated Isaac Yankem, DDS, better known as Kane.
The Unabomber.
Oh, no, it's not true.
I think that was Sid.
And over the hip there! You were too good to get it down! What? And Sable's on her feet, just like this capacity crowd. And Yankem defeated by the Wild.
And that's when Mero and Sable would start to get paired together on television. Mero would lose in the semifinals to Steve Austin at the King of the Ring in 1996. Kind of a big moment there. Nobody knows about it. On September 6, 1996 episode of Raw, Mero participated in a tournament for the Intercontinental Championship, which was vacated by Ahmed Johnson. We were just talking about him too. Due to injury, Mero defeated Stone Cold Steve Austin there, Owen Hart, and Farouk to win the title on September 23rd, 1996 episode of Raw. I saw a lot of pictures of Mero with the IC title here. It's kind of cool, you know?
Yeah. And there's a picture of the tournament, and I didn't realize he beat Austin in the first round. I was like,
because I think Austin beat him for King of the Ring, so like they just traded back. They didn't want Mero to lose any heat.
Here goes Mero! Do something, Sonny! Taking his time! Ah! 1, 2, we got a new Intercontinental Champion! The Wild Man! Marc Mero! And new World Wrestling Federation Intercontinental Champion, Wild Man Marc Mero! Sonny, he hitting with your purse, watch this! Oh, yeah! The Wild Man has done it! He is the new Intercontinental Champion!
And it was kind of crazy. He was really only champion. So funny. I think he took a bunch of pictures because he was like, "I'm only gonna be champion for like a month." He said, "Where's the camera guy? Where's the camera guy?"
Uh-huh.
I think there's even I don't know if his aunt, grandma, or mom holding the title with him. Like
it was the white. It was the white backed IC title too. So like,
he looked good. Yep. He would only hold that title for a short time, to Justice Point, before losing it to Hunter Hearst Helmsley in October of 1996. Then we roll into February of 1997, where he tore his anterior cruciate ligament and spent
the best effort I could.
That's a fancy word for ACL, and it spent 6 months rehabilitating that. While he was out, the WWF continued to use Sable on television, and she became increasingly popular with the fans. I think that is just an absolute understatement. It was Sable TV At
Dude,
this time.
Sable, like, she just took over.
Yeah. We don't want to get too much into that because this is his stuff, not her stuff. But yeah, it's a completely different.
Imagine sitting at home and watching Sable at that point, like just rise and rise, and then get riskier and edgier, and
Calling her every night.
What?
Did you do good today, honey? Did you do good on the job today? She's like, I'm so good. Everyone loves me.
Yeah,
that's good. Can you do a Mero salt?
I moved my knee another degree.
I did squats with no weight today. Oh, good. Anyway, I have to go. There like 20,000 fans want my autograph.
Yeah, talk to you later. Mero returned to the WWF TV set on October 6th of 1997, episode of Raw is War, where he was repackaged as a boxer turned wrestler and got the new nickname Marvelous. He began debuting a new finishing move, the TKO, to win his match against Miguel Perez Jr. Mero then began a slow turn as a villain after becoming jealous of the fans following Sable, that the fans that Sable had acquired in his absence and wanting her out of the WWF. Is there a little bit of more truth to that than we talk about, or?
No, they were married here. Like, he was, I just think in general, I mean, if you think about it, no matter what a great guy he was, like, you're a pro wrestler. You've been working really hard. You got saddled with this bad gimmick. You've fought and fought and fought. You leave WCW, you go to WWF because
you finally make it
for me. Yeah, you know what? I get to bring my wife on the road. That's awesome. They fall in love with your wife because there's so many stories from Bruce Pritchard. Bruce Pritchard told the story as well. When they brought Mero in to sign the contract, Vince always liked to bring their wives too to show them, hey, we're gonna take care of your husband. We're gonna make everything great. And like when they left the meeting, like. Vince turned to Bruce and goes, "Did you see what I just saw?" And then Bruce is like, "What?" And he's like, "Sable's a star. She's amazing." And like, so already they knew right then when Mero signed that, like, oh, his wife Sable, she's fucking something. And so they already knew then that they were going to try to. Then they started coaxing her to the ring. She actually started by accompanying Triple H to the ring, or Hunter Hearst Helmsley. And then that's when Mero's like, "Don't you treat the women like crap? I love women." And so he pulled her over, and that's why they started to accompany each other to the ring. And that was Vince's way of getting Sable used to being on TV. And then Vince started talking to her and, hey, you're really getting popular. Let's use you more. Let's do this. Let's do that. And then she would start accompanying Sunny out there, and they'd be using her and Sunny as like the top two women of the promotion. And then people just started, I remember just first seeing Sable going, she was so like beautiful. And she was just so like different. You know, you weren't used to seeing that kind of woman in wrestling. I mean, you had a little bit from Elizabeth. Sunny was really hot, but at the same time, like, you know, it was just Sunny. And then you had Sable, who looked just like super exotic, and she had like a different face about her in a great way. And like, she just looked awesome. Like, she looked amazing. And so people,
what did Vince refer to her at? Like, oh, you look like a wildcat.
Yeah,
you're a wildcat.
Yeah. Wow. So is that my nickname? No, if you want to be your nickname,
sorry.
Just get out, Mark. I don't know anymore. Give him the Intercontinental title for a month. It's fine.
Yeah, it's all good. As 1998 began, Mero's obsession with Sable had continued, which led to a temporary alliance with Goldust and his valet, Luna Vachon, in which the three humiliated Sable during matches, but it turned into a short feud when Goldust became physical with Sable. Ouch. At WrestleMania 14, Mero and Sable defeated Goldust and Luna in a mixed tag team match. The storyline was resolved in a match between Mero and Sable at Over the Edge, in which Mero feigned remorse, offering to lie down and allow her to pin him before defeating Sable with an inside cradle. I do remember that, which resulted in her leaving the WWF for a short time, and Mero had completed his villainous turn. After he dropped Sable as his valet, Jacqueline became his manager. At that time, Mero's last appearance in the WWF television space in the United States was on November 30th of 1998 episode of Raw is War, where he faced light heavyweight champion Dwayne Gill. He promised to retire if he did not win the match. Gill won the match with the help of the O.W.P squad. In 1999, both Mero and Sable had left the WWF. At the time, Mero had 3 years remaining on his contract with a guaranteed salary of $350,000. Mero subsequently did not wrestle for 18 months due to various nagging injuries and a shoulder surgery. Mero had then retired from in-ring competition in 2006, opening and operating the Marc Mero Body Slam Training Institute at Altamont Springs in Florida. Seems like just gone too fast.
Yeah, you know, and that's why I wanted to do it too. Like, what happened to Marc Mero? Because it's true, like, Sable just eclipsed him, And I don't mean that as a disparaging like remark towards Mark, because I really do think he was a good worker in there, and I think he did a lot of innovative stuff, and he really tried to, especially just getting that Johnny B. Bad character over was really like, great on his part, and he just never fit in, like he never the wild man. And I did like his heel character where he was marvelous, Marc Mero, and he was jealous of Sable. He'd always be like, Sable, can you do a moonsault or a Mero salt? No, he would put Mero in front of every move that he did, a Mero salt, a Meroplex, or whatever. Yeah. And so he'd be like, can you do a Meroplex? No. Can you do a Mero salt? No. And it was really funny. Like, what do you do when you literally are watching your wife get into your profession and then out of nowhere she starts eclipsing you? I mean, you just kind of go with the ride, right? Like, so I really think that a lot of people confuse. Dave said it at the beginning, that people think that was real life. Mero supported her, I'm almost positive, in the whole thing. But you got to think as like somebody who comes in.
If he was that good at it, he made you.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Real. Like you, it's your profession. Anyone listening to this podcast, if your husband or wife all of a sudden jumped into whatever profession you do for a living, and in like 2 months they like eclipse you, you'd be like, oh wow, good job, honey. Like I've been doing this for 20 years. Or,
is that the phone? Is that Vince? Is that for me? Oh no, it's for you. Oh, the shirt.
Yeah, right. Okay. Like they're at home or whatever. She's like, oh, Vince is on the phone, no problem. And she's like, it's for me.
Tell him I'll be right there.
It's for me, baby. It's for me.
Huh?
Yeah.
Huh? Oh. It's like the Incredibles 2, where they're like, oh, we should just use Elastigirl. Oh.
Did you take my mascara?
But I'm Mr. Incredible though. I'm Mr. Incredible. Yeah.
But yeah, he was great. Like Marc Mero was great. Like he was really good at everything he was asked to do. And then he got a little injury prone towards the end, but I mean, some people get that way. He was a good athlete for sure.
Still put 16 years in the business. Can't really argue about that. Yeah. We'll delve into his personal life here briefly. I hope he doesn't mind. Marc and Rena Mero actually separated in mid-2003. They divorced amicably in 2004. Marc had married for the second time in 2009 to Darlene Speezy, and they actually divorced in 2019. Just can't seem to find the love of life.
What's that word you said, amicably?
Did I say that?
Yeah. Did
I say it okay?
Fun. It's a fun word. Go on.
Okay.
It's a fun word.
Okay. Marc Mero's book, How to Be the Happiest Person on the Planet, was released on December 6th of 2010. June and July of 2007, Mero commented on the Chris Benoit murder-suicide, appearing on numerous cable news programs, criticizing both the wrestling industry and the World Wrestling Entertainment piece. This is what I was talking about at the beginning. People want to give Marc Mero a hard time because he took a hard stance after the Chris Benoit situation. And not to mention, several wrestlers had died years and years before due to substance abuse and other items. And he's reaching out saying they have no help. They're based as independent contractors. It's a lot of stuff, and they're just not taken care of, you know. So, but they're still expected to be big and make dates. And if you're hurt, it's your problem. Go see a doctor and pay for it on your own. He felt that wrestlers should have insurance, and wrestlers should have, you know, kind of paid for, but also they should have representation, and they should have unions. And a lot of the active wrestlers really push back on that. You were talking about somewhere in these comments about Fit Finlay. Was another big example. I saw them side by side, I want to say on the CNN segment, and Fit Finlay tried to tear him apart and make him look really stupid.
I wrote about down here too. Yeah,
the WWE product, right? So we'll get into that. But in an interview with WFTV, Mero admitted to using both anabolic steroids and recreational drugs over a period of 7 years, and claimed that steroids had contributed to the early deaths of many wrestlers. In interviews, Mero produced a list of 25, which was later expanded to 31 wrestlers with whom he had wrestled and who had since died, calling for the greater regulation of the wrestling industry. That's what we're talking about. Substance abuse help, insurance for these guys, something other than independent contracting work.
Both of you, let's start with Marc. What would you like to have seen the feds do with the information? Would you have liked them to bust your friend?
Well, with all due respect to Chris Benoit's mother, who I can't imagine what she's going through right now, this tragedy is just horrific. But, you know, to say that this could have been avoided, even if they did bust Chris Benoit, he's got the money to bail himself out of jail, and who knows what state of mind he would have been in after that happened. You know, it's just speculation, but let's look at the real problem here. Let's look at what really killed many of these wrestlers, and that is the sport of professional wrestling, of what these guys have to put their bodies through, put their minds through, put their families through. That is what killed Chris Benoit and the Benoit family.
Well, Mark, let me jump in here.
Mero's comments attracted criticism from WWE employees such as Mr. Kennedy, who had labeled him as a goof and a silly bastard. I think that's funny because Mr. Kennedy made one mistake and he was out on his ass too. And we're all big Kennedy
How
fans.
loyal was WWE to Mr. Kennedy, right?
Yeah. That I can go off on it. What happened to Mr.
He botched
Kennedy?
a couple moves on Triple H and Randy Orton, which you don't do, and then he gets fucking labeled as like unsafe and gets fired, basically.
Yeah, he's
So
one of the.
How do you feel now,
Mr. Kennedy. Well, by the way, we should do a "What Happened to Mr. Kennedy" episode, but that's
for the very good. I agree with you 100%.
Kennedy,
and he's still working, still working.
NWA.
Yeah, Dave Finley, who claimed Mero had nothing to do with this business, which is like, what? What are you saying? On July 15th of 2007, Mero attended the memorials of Nancy and Daniel Benoit in Daytona Beach, Florida. Following his comments, Mero began making appearances at schools in Central Florida and lecturing on the dangers of drug abuse and bullying. He also promotes a similar interest website of which he is affiliated. As of April 2nd, 2009, he has had many appearances in schools and community colleges across Florida and remains a public speaker of positivity to this day. While it's a short story, it's a novella at best. It's a good story. Like and he definitely, I feel like he's definitely trying to do what's right. And I think he definitely supported people while he played that jealous card on TV. He supported Sable all the way through, like Jess had said. And like I said, what happened to Johnny B. Bad, bro? And this is it. This is where it went.
And he's still on Twitter. He's still doing schools and doing assemblies and doing outreach for kids and talking to everybody. And Champions of Choice, I think, is or his organization. He does with the pandemic. He's done virtual kind of assemblies and things with kids, but he's walked the walk, and he's done that since, I guess, I didn't know he'd done it for that long, but he continues to do so. And I think he believes what he says. And I think even though he was lambasted for it back in 2007, and then he was not wrong about any of these things. So
no, it's so crazy, like the way the wrestling community will rile against you. Like if you try to branch out, I guarantee you when he was in the sport, people were like, yeah, Mark, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. And then the second he gets out on his own, he starts going, you know what? Like it was such a huge undertaking when Chris Benoit passed. I mean, the wrestling industry went into turmoil because the mainstream media was all over them about drug use and steroids and everything, even more so than the trial. And it just got so hot for Vince and company, and WWE was the only show left in town. So, anybody that lashed out against Vince at the time.
There's a big difference between anabolic steroid use and 50 out of 60 wrestlers in the past 2 years dying that have worked for you at one time.
Well, and can we agree too that just because somebody comes out and says that wrestlers should be supported, WWE, because they are the biggest show in town, they immediately take it personal. They're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You talking about us? It's like, well, I'm talking about wrestling in general. Well, you must be talking about us because we're only promotion.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. If you take offense to that, then that means you're probably guilty of something. Didn't help these people. And they slowly have.
I have an idea. If you do as an actor, if you have so much, what's the term, Craig? The term that I'm thinking of, you do so much work in a year, you're covered, right? Every actor pays into it.
Oh yeah, then the SAG after kind of.
Yeah, so
the
guild,
the guild.
So the guild. So why couldn't we have something of that nature? And by the way, you could have. I mean, if Vince was smart, I'd like to think he's smart. He's not smart right now. Why wouldn't he just start a fund like that to help wrestlers?
Yeah,
there's even funds with the NFL to help NFL players with CTE and other items. Why don't you just put a fund together and shut this down? It's still being talked about.
Yeah, and what better way to get attention from the company and the boss by defending the company and shitting on Marc Mero and attacking him?
Yeah,
and any chance you got. Hey, did you see me last night? I defended.
Anymore, right?
Yeah, so he was a target for sure.
Oh yeah, he's already gone. It's easy. There's no repercussion for Marc Mero, but he was all over the media piece because quite frankly he knew what he was talking about. And he can state specific examples on his account.
Well, and he humbled himself. He admitted it. He's like, yeah, I did steroids. I did recreational drugs. It's a bad recipe. It's something that's going to kill these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a insane story. Any closing
Well, yeah, and that's why, like I know there's like I'm trying to define a difference between our legacies, and I'm not saying anybody who puts their life on the line or their health on the line for this sport is or this form of entertainment, whatever you want to call it, doesn't deserve a legacy or whatever. But I mean, like there are some wrestlers that are not, we're doing a legacy of Stone Cold. Even Sid, they wrestled for years, were on the top, won major world titles. And I'm not saying that Mero wasn't important. He won the TV title in WCW. He won the Intercontinental Championship in WWE. And he was part of the original Sable storyline that got her launched like into the stratosphere. So Marc Mero was important, but I mean, not long enough for a legacy per se, even though the work that he's doing outside of wrestling now is worth a legacy. And I'm not suggesting that. So
Sure.
I really want to, I more than Ahmed Johnson. Ahmed Johnson was kind of like, whatever happened to that guy? But this one, it's like, no, people remember Marc Mero.
It's an intriguing story.
Yeah, Marc Mero was around in the Attitude Era and in the beginning of the Monday Night Wars. He was on Nitro for a little bit in '95 before he left, and then he went to WWF and then continued on after that into the whole, 97, 98 Attitude Era kind of thing. So Mero was important. He was around a lot. He improved his skill. I really admire him as a worker and a professional wrestler and the work that he does now. I really do. And so I think that this is perfect. This topic more than the Ahmed Johnson one defines of whatever happened to, because
This should have been the first.
yeah,
one.
there's a lot of people that we won't do legacies on that have been around for 20 years, 30 years, won a few world titles, Intercontinental and everything. But Marc Mero should be talked about for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Craig, what do you think, Craigie Poo?
Yeah, I think that he doesn't have the career to kind of warrant a big, long legacy. I think it's these guys that were a part of kind of the big moments in those mid-card kind of roles that were around for longer than a cup of coffee, but you remember them surely. That like what does beg the question, what happened to them? And I think this was a nice summation of Marc and giving respect and giving some kind of background into the other kind of controversies that he had. But he was a guy, I think, from the very beginning, and leaving WCW because of a thing with Kimberly and a Christian, but he was a Christian that also had no problem doing that effeminate Johnny B. Bad character and never really mentioned it and had any issue with it. So, and he was always kind of on the side of good, I think, Marc Mero, and continues kind of that to this day with his work with kids. So
I think that's the biggest piece of it that warrants what happened too is he took on the Giant, and I would argue that he kind of won a little bit. The work is good. The mic work is good. He had a 16-year career. He admitted to faults within himself, getting caught into the wrestling world and taking steroids and all those other items. And he went up against a machine, and things have changed. And I think he was a part of that. I think people fail to see that. He definitely got crapped on through the whole process. And you can say, well, Benoit is the reason that everything changed. I think a lot of people say that, but a lot of people forget that Marc Mero went around all the media outlets across the country for like a year and was spouting off on how this is not right. Now, did he get insurance for wrestlers and get them to be unionized? No. But did he get them to change what they did? I'd say, yeah, he's a part of that.
They're the closest they've ever been at this point.
Exactly. And I think, now it's up to other people of the world, maybe, dare I say, the AEWs of the world to take downside guarantees to a whole other level and really protect these people if they get hurt and take care of their families in a different way, which I'm not saying that Vince hasn't done that, but there's things you can put in writing. You don't have to go, oh, Vince, like, let me do you a favor. Like when Eddie Guerrero died, it wasn't like they took care of the family. He had Vicky take over that contract, right? And we'll take care of you that way. This is different. This is like, no, in writing, if something happens to you, you're good. And you're good in case you die, in case you get to a point where you can't walk anymore. Because that can happen in this industry. And that's what Mero was looking for. He didn't get it. But like to your point, I think he got them closer than they ever have been. Not just him. It was a myriad of things, but he was definitely a big part of it. Right?
Yeah.
So, all right. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcast. Or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. On social media, give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at O.W.P 2019 or at Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast. This is Dave, Jess, and Craig, and No Cuz. Woo! There you go.
I'm sorry.
With the O.W.P signing off. Have a good one.